Hello and welcome to another episode of today's GK. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment we bring to you objective questions on a daily basis to help you crack prelims. So let's begin with the practice question of last segment. Consider the following statements about the western disturbances. They are high pressure systems embedded in western winds that flow from west to the east. They develop in the mid-latitude region north of the Tropic of Cancer. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is B, that is 2 only. Only the second statement is correct, and I hope you have answered it correctly in the comment segment. Moving on to the explanation. Storms are a natural phenomenon caused by violent atmospheric disturbances over land and water. They get formed when a center of low pressure develops with a system of high pressure surrounding it. Western disturbances develop in the mid-latitude region, that is north of Tropic of Cancer, not in the tropical region. Therefore, they are called as mid-latitude storms or extratropical storms. If we talk about western disturbances, they are low-pressure systems that are embedded in the western winds, and they travel, once they form typically over the Mediterranean Sea, they travel from Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan and then comes into India. If we talk about the western disturbances precipitation, when they get trapped by the mighty Himalayas, after that, because of the blockage, the moisture-laden winds start to precipitate. And this particular term, western disturbances, was coined in the year 1947. However, before it was known as winter disturbances, which was coined in the year 1931. Alright, let's move on to our next question, please. Consider the following statements. The World Food Price Index is a measure of the monthly change in international prices of a basket of food commodities. It measures changes for a basket of cereals and oilseeds only. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is A, that is 1 only. Let's move on to the explanation. The World Food Price Index was introduced in 1996 as a public good to help in monitoring developments in the global agricultural commodity markets. The FAO Food Price Index is a measure of the monthly change in international prices of a basket of food commodities. If we talk about FAO, it is a specialized agency of the United Nations which was formed in the year 1945 on 16th of October. And it recently, that means on 16th October 2020, it celebrated its 75th year of formation, and the Indian government launched a commemorative coin of denomination of rupees 75. The World Food Program which won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2020, was formulated in that particular year period. And if we talk about why it is so significant for India, because a civil servant named Binay Ranjan Singh was the Directorate General or Director General of FAO in the year from the year 1956 to 1967. That is why this particular agency is very important for India, and it is headquartered at Rome in Italy. Alright, let's move on and talk about our next statement, which says, it measures changes for a basket of cereals, oilseeds, dairy products, meat and sugar, and the base period is 2014 to 2016. Let's move on to our next question. Which of the following countries releases its annual special 301 report? UK, Canada, France, USA. The correct answer for this question is D, that is USA. Moving on to the explanation. This particular report is prepared annually by the Office of the United States Trade Representative that identifies trade barriers to US companies and products due to the intellectual property laws such as copyright, patents and trademarks in other countries. It is published pursuant to Section 301 of the Trades Act of 1974. The report includes a list of priority foreign countries that are judged to have inadequate intellectual property laws. These countries may be subject to sanctions. In addition, The report contains a priority watch list and a watch list containing countries whose intellectual property regimes are deemed of concern. So if we talk about intellectual property rights or IPR, these give a right to an individual who has a creation of their mind. That means that particular creation could be an innovation, a literary or artistic work, or in the field of science. Alright, let's move on and talk about our next question. Longitudinal Aging Study of India Wave 1 report is released by A. National Sample Survey Office, B. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, C. Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, D. Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. The correct answer for this question is B, that is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Let's move on to our explanation. Recently, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has released the Longitudinal Aging Study of India Wave 1 report on the virtual platform. It is a full-scale national survey of scientific investigation of the health, economic and social determinants and consequences of population aging in India, and it was commissioned in the year 2016. It is India's first and the world's largest ever survey that provides a longitudinal database for designing policies and programs for the older population in the broad domains of social health and economic well-being. The evidence from LASI will be used to further strengthen and broaden the scope of the national program for healthcare of the elderly. Let's look at our next question. Consider the following statements. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas marks the day of the return of Mahatma Gandhi from South Africa. The theme of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas 2021 is contributing to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is C, that is both 1 and 2. Both the statements are correct. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is celebrated on 9th January every year to mark the contribution of overseas Indian community in the development of India. 9th January was chosen as the day to celebrate the occasion since it was on this day in 1915 that Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa and eventually led India's freedom struggle. The theme of the 16th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention 2021 is Contributing to Atmanirbhar Bharat. PBD conventions have been held every year since 2003. These conventions provide a platform to the overseas Indian community to engage with the government and people of the land of their ancestors for mutually beneficial activities. If we talk about the Global Migration Report of 2020, India remains the country which has the largest migrant population in different or diaspora in different countries around the globe. And if we talk about the data, it is approximately 17 million people living in the entire world which are from Indian origin. And also if we talk about the remittances, India received a whopping approximately $78 billion of remittance, right? That is the amount of, that is the diaspora that India holds around the globe, right? Moving on. Let's look at our next question. With reference to Jal Jeevan Mission, consider the following statements. It aims to provide piped water supply to all rural and urban households by 2024. Creation of local infrastructure for rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge is an integral part of it. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is C, that is both 1 and 2. Both the statements are correct. Moving on to the explanation. The JJM, this mission was announced in August 2019. The chief objective of the mission is to provide piped water supply, Har Ghar Jal, to all rural and urban households by 2024 And if we talk about why is this scheme so significant for India, because India has 16% of the world's population and only 4% of the world's freshwater supply. Because of the deterioration in the quality of water, depleting groundwater, and also climate change, India needs such schemes to make India very safe and secure when it comes to water supply, right? And this particular mission aims to create local infrastructure for rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge, and management of household wastewater for reuse in agriculture. The Jal Jeevan mission is said to be based on various water conservation efforts like point recharge, desilting of minor irrigation tanks, use of grey water for agriculture, and source sustainability. The Jal Jeevan mission will converge and with other central and state government schemes to achieve its objectives of sustainable water supply management across the country. Let's look at our next question, please. Consider the following statements with reference to New Industrial Development Scheme for Jammu and Kashmir 2021. It is a centrally sponsored scheme under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The scheme aims to take industrial development to the block level in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is the first time in any industrial incentive scheme of the Government of India. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. So the correct answer for this question is B, that is 2 only the second statement is correct. Moving on to the explanation. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved a scheme for the industrial development of Jammu and Kashmir. The scheme is approved with a total outlay of Rs 28,400 crore up to the year 2037. Please keep this in mind. Government of India has formulated new industrial development scheme for Jammu and Kashmir as central sector scheme for the development of industries in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. If we talk about why industrial development is so important in the Union Territories of Jammu and Kashmir, because of the lack of economic opportunities there, when there is any form of economic vacuum, it will be filled with gap, will be filled with radicalization and militants. So that is why it is very important for any part of the country to be developed economically, right? Moving on. The main purpose of the scheme is to generate employment which directly leads to the socio-economic development of the area. Scheme is made attractive for both smaller and larger units. Smaller units with an investment in plant and machinery up to Rs 50 crore will get a capital incentive up to 7.5 crore rupees and get capital interest subvention at the rate of 6% for maximum 7 years. The scheme aims to take industrial development to the block level in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is the first time in any industrial incentive scheme of the Government of India. Let's look at our next question. Which of the following is our critically endangered species? Great Indian bustard, namdafa, flying squirrel, caracal. Select the correct answer using the following codes. A1 and 2 only, B2 and 3 only, C 1 and 3 only, or D 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer for this question is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. Moving on to the explanation. The Standing Committee of National Board for Wildlife in the 60th meeting has approved the inclusion of caracal into the list of critically endangered species for taking up conservation efforts with financial support under centrally sponsored scheme development of wildlife habitat. Caracal is a medium-sized wild cat found in some parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Now there are 22 wildlife species under the recovery program for critically endangered species. If we talk about other critically endangered species, pygmy hog is there, Andaman white-toothed shrew is there, large rock rat or Elvira rat, namdafa flying squirrel, Javan rhinoceros, great Indian bustard, and Bengal florican. If we talk about National Board for Wildlife, it is a statutory body and it was established in the year 2003. under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and this particular board is chaired by the Prime Minister of India, and it promotes as well as conserves the wildlife. If we talk about the Standing Committee of National Wildlife Board, then it is chaired by Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Alright, so moving on, let's talk about our next question. Which of the following countries comprise the basic group? Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, India, Chile. Select the correct answer using the following codes. A 1, 3 and 5 only, B 1, 3 and 4 only, C 2, 3, 4 and 5 only, or D 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The correct answer for this question is B, that is 1, 3 and 4 only. Moving on to the explanation. The basic countries are a block of 4 large, newly industrialized countries, Brazil, South Africa, India and China, formed by an agreement on 28 November 2009. Basic countries broadly have a common position on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and raising the massive funds that are needed to fight climate change. If we talk about the greenhouse gas emissions, the highest emitter of greenhouse gases, of course, we all know, it's China, and second comes the US, right? Moving on, let's talk about our next question. Consider the following statements with reference to the Global Environment Facility. It was established during the Rio Earth Summit of 1992. It is jointly managed by the UNDP, the World Bank and the UNEP. It provides funding to assist developing countries in meeting the objectives of international environmental concerns. Let's look at the options. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A 3 only, B 1 and 2 only, C 2 and 3 only, or D 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer for this question is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. All these 3 statements are correct. Let's move on to the explanation. GEF was established during the Rio Earth Summit of 1992 and it is based in Washington, D.C., United States. The GEF is jointly managed by the UNDP, the World Bank and the UNEP. Also, the GEF provides funding to assist developing countries in meeting the objectives of international environmental conventions. The GEF serves as a financial mechanism to 5 conventions. The Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, as well as Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, UN Convention to Combat Desertification, and Minamata Convention on Mercury. Let's look at our next question, please. Consider the following statements with reference to first advanced estimates of GDP. It extrapolates a variety of data, such as the index of industrial production, the financial performance of listed companies, first advanced estimates of crop production, etc., for the first 7 to 8 years to arrive at the annual figure. These GDP estimates are used by the Finance Ministry to decide the next financial year's budget allocation. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is B, that is only the second statement is correct over here. Moving on to the explanation. For any financial year, the MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, provides regular estimates of GDP. The first such instance is through the first advanced estimates. And what is GDP basically? GDP is the value of all goods as well as services which have been produced within the geographical boundaries of a country. Now, it could be produced by an Indian individual or even a foreign company, right? Moving on, the FAE extrapolates a variety of data such as the index of industrial production, the financial performance of listed companies, first advanced estimates of crop production for the first 7 to 8 months to arrive at the annual figure. Their significance lies in the fact that they are the GDP estimates that the Union Finance Ministry uses to decide the next financial year's budget allocation. The FAE will be quickly updated as more information becomes available on February 26th. The MOSPI will come out with the second advance estimates of GDP for the current year. Moving on, let's look at the practice question for our next segment. Consider the following statements with reference to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It is a multilateral treaty adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. It commits its parties to respect the civil and political rights of individuals, including electoral rights and rights to due process and a fair trial. It is monitored by the United Nations General Assembly through a specially appointed law committee. Moving on to the statements to the options. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A 1 and 2 only, B 2 and 3 only, C 1 and 3 only, or D 1, 2 and 3. So, I hope you'll be able to answer it correctly in the comment segment. That's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.